Thank you for joining. This is Confessions of a Dominatrix, Episode 2, Why I Dominate. The Descent. The stairs whisper when you come down. Not creaks, whispers. You notice it because your body is watching for anything that moves before your mind will. The city above is bright and loud. Down here, the world compresses into a small, honest shape. That compression is deliberate. It prepares you. I am Mz Haze. I work in a basement beneath a shop that sells lace and secrets. You might find that image seductive or cheap, depending on where you stand. But the truth is simpler. The space is chosen because it holds sound, holds light, and holds people in a way that daylight cannot. Brick walls hold history. Fabric eats noise. The ceiling is low, so your posture matters. The light is angled so faces reveal themselves without the need for shouting. Everything in this room is a tool for the kind of honesty people rarely invite into their lives. The room. When someone steps inside, they always look around. They're searching for the rules before I have spoken them aloud. There are items on display, objects that definitely don't flirt. They are precise. Nothing is accidental. The rugs mute footsteps, and the silk and cotton suspended from the rafters often soften the air until even breath seems like a statement. It's not decorative bravado. It's containment. Containment is essential. Before we touch the deeper work, I build a perimeter. Not just physically, but psychologically as well. Consent is recorded. Terms are understood. Stop signals exist and are very respected. I say this plainly because people assume otherwise. There is no sexual service here. That is not the commodity. What I offer is exposure to truth under pressure. It is negotiated, it is intentional, and it is legal. And it is very much held with care. The interview. The first voice they hear from me is warm. I'm curious in a way that disarms. Genuine questions, nothing theatrical. I ask them to tell me the truth of why they're here. Not the story they tell strangers, not the fantasy that looks good in a message thread, but the exact reason that made them pick up the phone at 3 a.m. and arrange an appointment in my basement. I listen to their words and the commas between them, where they hesitate, where they gloss over, where they speed up. Those are the maps. I ask about history, about attempts to heal, about boundaries. I ask them, what are you willing to feel that you have not yet felt? I ask them to sign the work into existence. This is our container. These are the rules. This is what safe looks like. Then we close the door. There is a craft to building trust quickly. It comes from years in dark corners and front doors. from learning to make someone feel held long enough to take the first hard step. That skill is every bit as essential as my ability to be uncompromising when the session shifts. The session, philosophical. The work starts where conversation ends. The architecture of surrender is not about smashing a person. It's about removing their alibis until only one truth is left. I create calibrated overwhelm, not harm, but to disarm the scripts that they use to live in denial. You must understand what I mean by calibrated. I do not seek to traumatize anyone. I intentionally place pressure like a surgeon places a hand, precise and purposeful. The mind builds defenses, stories, rationalizations, jokes, lies. Those defenses become identity. They keep you safe, and sometimes they keep you small. My job is to interrupt the pattern long enough for the person inside the pattern to see it for what it is. When I push, it is not random. I test thresholds, the tone that makes them flinch, the silence that exposes the pause in their breathing, the unexpected question that undoes the practical answer. Often, the most effective tool is unpredictability, used with restraint. In combat training, you learn range and rhythm. In this room, I use those same principles on the emotional body. I move at their level, then slightly faster. I mirror them, then refuse to mirror. I make them focus where they have never had to focus before. On the truth they've been rewriting to keep going. Submission in these terms is not about giving up power to someone who wants to dominate. It is about surrendering the story you tell yourself so you can have access to the person beneath it. That surrender is a resource. It's where repair begins. People arrive wanting relief, relief from shame, relief from the loop of their own behavior. And many find it here because we make them, I make them face what they will not otherwise face. The trigger, recognizing instability. There's a certain grammar to instability. It has patterns. It tests tempo. It looks for weakness. I have been around violent, unsteady people enough to know the cadence of escalation. And it often begins in the eyes, and then migrates to breath, and then stands. You can hear it in the voice when an argument is rehearsal rather than an engagement. That is where the danger lies. My training, years of martial practice and real fights, gave me a vocabulary for movement and intent. Martial arts teaches you about leverage, about yielding, about using an opponent's energy to redirect. In this work, I use those lessons differently, to redirect fear into clarity, to turn aggression into admission. I do not teach people to be weaker. I teach them to find the muscle they forgot they had, their capacity to own truth. What I see with other trauma professionals, police, medics, and other bodyguards and such, is a recognition of the same dynamic: tone, space, and timing. The difference in my room is the goal. A negotiator will try to buy time. An officer will try to contain a scene. I will try to create a moment where the person inside the pattern doesn't need to perform their crisis because they can be seen and held through it. That requires skill, patience, and an understanding that pushing too hard is not brave. It is reckless. The technique. I will not teach people to perform coercion. The point here is ethical depth. Anyone who hears this and thinks they can weaponize, overwhelm, without consent, misses the moral axis completely. This work is anchored in agreement. Every pressure has been requested in some form. The tools of intensity are used to reveal, not to punish, unless punishment is the only honest answer the client requested for themselves, and it was negotiated and contained. You can translate this to the street. Presence can be your de-escalation, a steady voice, a slower breath, a refusal to be drawn into the same panic. Those are tactics. The training from fighting, stamina, reading movement, surviving impact. It gives you confidence to stay calm. Confidence is contagious. Calm is contagious. People mirror the person who holds the room more often than they mirror the person who shouts the loudest. The mirror. What they learn. Facing someone in a controlled collapse, many discover an inconvenient truth. They are not who they thought they were when the script is taken away. They are smaller in some ways, perhaps, but also more honest. The mirror I hold up does not flinch from what it shows. I have watched men of influence break down and rebuild. People who hid incompetence find a center that competes less with others and more with their own standards. There is a moral muscle that strengthens with practice. Accountability. In the absence of consequences, people often evaporate into excuses. Here, you can be accountable to your choices because we name them in real time. That naming can be painful, but it can be so liberating. The archetypes, the why and the how. People fit into patterns. Knowing the pattern helps me choose which pressure to apply and where to hold back. These patterns are not judgments, they're maps I try to follow as best I can. We have the power addict. They've been safe under authority for too long. They come to lose the crown and find the person beneath it. The learning is humility that translates into better leadership. Next, we have the broken mirror. Shame is their core. They come to speak the unspeakable and to measure themselves in truth, not in avoidance. Next, we have the challenger. They test the limits because they want to know if control is real. For them, the lesson is landing into the fact of not really actually being in control and finding relief in that. Next, we have the seeker. They come without clarity. They need to be made to name what is missing. Naming is the first architecture of recovery. Next, we have the survivor. Trauma sits heavy with them. They require a balance of softness and force so they can practice boundaries and not relive the wound. Lastly, we have the outsider. They bring requests strange to most. Their work is about integration, making the unusual legible and safe inside a contract. For each, I choose a different cadence. For each, the martial art of timing, when to press and when to yield, comes into play. That training is not about violence. It is about rhythm and respect for limits. The session, what they must let go of. Overwhelm works because it strips rehearsal. When the mind cannot rely on the script, the body speaks clearly. People think submission means surrendering autonomy. What actually happens is the opposite. They surrender illusions, and what remains is agency, unclouded by performance. You must let go of defense narratives, the ones that say, I didn't mean it, or they made me, or that's just how I am. Those narratives protect a fragile identity. They're often the last thing someone will relinquish. When they finally do, it is not a collapse so much as a clearing, a place where a different future can be imagined. The ethics and the safety. This work is heavy moral labor. I document everything. I debrief. I advise follow-up. Consent ends at the door if it was not informed, or if the person is not fit to consent due to impairment. That is non-negotiable. I do not take advantage of the vulnerable. I will not allow drugs and alcohol to be abused while we're trying to do real work. I mitigate risk. I insist on aftercare. I work with referrals when necessary. The gray area is not lawlessness. It is disciplined negotiation. The return, decompression, and integration. When the session ends, we do not pretend we've finished with the world. We plan re-entry. We name what will be different tomorrow. We practice how to speak a new boundary out loud at breakfast and how to step back when someone tests us at work. Integration is the test of any real change. Some do not come back for spectacle. Some come back for proof that they can be present without being a performance. That's the currency this work trades in. Correction that translates into a better ordinary. The close. Why I do it. Why do I stay in the shadows? Because this is where truth comes to light. People can pray, preach, and medicate to avoid looking at themselves. I hold a mirror until the reflection is unavoidable. I do it because I have been where they are, on the edge between apology and action, and I know what a different choice looks like. You will be uncomfortable in my rooms. You will be safe, though. You will be honest. And when you climb the whispering stairs again, the city will feel the same, but you will not. Why I dominate. Another diary truth. There is a quiet that comes after pain, a place where wounds become wisdom. I do not dominate for pleasure alone. I dominate because pain carved the path, because I was once powerless, and in the fire, I learned to hold the blade. My trauma became my teacher. It showed me where I bled so I could learn how to bind. It taught me that control was not the enemy, but the key. I was once a daughter, then a mother, then a sovereign. From birth pain to breaking chains, I studied the rhythm of resilience. Domination is not cruelty. It is ceremony, a structured space where chaos can be tamed and the soul can be heard. To dominate is to protect, to hold someone's fear in your hand and offer them back their strength. I am both the fire and the shelter. In session, I am the storm. At home, I am the mountain. I hold men in submission and children in safety. The same heart, different hands. Trauma enters us young, often during silence. I meet people in their silence and offer structure. When I read a client, I am not judging. I am listening with every sense. Who harmed you? What are you trying to reclaim? We don't always heal by being loved. Sometimes we heal by being seen. The world divides power by gender, but strength has no sex. I was a tomboy, then a girl among boys, then a woman among warriors. I have worn pink and bled on concrete. I have submitted to humiliation, not from weakness, but the stubborn desire to just be included. Balance came later, when I had a daughter, when I taught her that power isn't a costume, it's a conviction. True femininity isn't fragile. It is the scent of a wildflower in a field of ash. Masculinity isn't a threat. It is the steelness of a blade held with intention. We are both. We must be. Dominance is not just my profession. It is my pilgrimage. To every listener, walking the line between chaos and clarity, you are not broken. You are awakening. Next, I will show you the armor I wear, the world of shadows I navigate, the life I've saved by accident, and the lives I've changed with purpose. Until then, stand in your story, move with meaning, and wield your past like a blade